All right, we are live from Occupy City Hall. I'm trying to knock out a few of these articles that have come out in the past, really in the past month or so, and then actually after that we'll retroactively just keep going back and making this a regular staple of what we do here. So we just recently, yesterday we went over the article about the 80% police officers living outside of the city of Rockford. And then earlier today, or just a moment ago this evening, we went through the article of the Rockford Police Department officer Eric Thurman taking a guilty plea for the sexual assault that he was charged with. And now I'm going to go through and read an article that is also from R Star, entitled "We Just Want to Close the Gap. Company Boosting Diversity at Rockford City Market." And so the same thing that we did with these other articles that we've read today and yesterday and that we've done in the past, we're going to do is just go through, read the article, and have a critical analysis about some of the things written in the article. So, excuse me, let's start by saying that this was the cover story for the August 17th paper. It might have been for the August 18th paper because it says the story was released August 17th. But here, let's read through this. The story is written by Andrea V. Watson. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Rockford City Market attracts hundreds of people to downtown each Friday, but one company is on a mission to ensure more minority vendors and entertainers get access to the event. Okay, so let me first interject by saying more minority vendors and entertainers getting access to City Market as it is currently constructed is not furthering black liberation. It is pushing us deeper into black exploitation and black oppression and and black in mental enslavement and psychological enslavement, a whole bunch of negative things. And let me start off by saying the reason that is because right now, currently, Rockford City Market is ran by multiple racist white people who have engaged in weaponizing of police, who have engaged in falsifying of police reports, who have engaged in trying to suppress and repress unjustly people's right to assemble and people's right to protest. And so the idea that getting more black people to work with these racist white people is somehow liberating black people, or getting more black people to have the opportunity to be at an event that these white people run, is getting these black people closer to having the bondage that has been on their ancestors broken or off of them, is folly, is false. And so before we even get deeper into this story, we have to have the critical conversation of not only how City Market is racist, but the fact that you cannot use a racist institution or a racist system to further the concepts of anti-racism, or to further the concepts of anti-blackness. Or to further to struggle against the concept of anti-blackness and to further the concept of anti-racism. Until City Market changes the way it's constructed, until City Market drops the charges it has against protesters, until City Market no longer tries to own a whole area of real estate to stop people from protesting, the institution of City Market and the event and the organization of City Market, they are all racist constructs, and anything that helps that racist construct, whether it be from a financial standpoint or from an image standpoint or a narrative standpoint, is helping the system of racism. And so as much as it may be a hard pill to swallow for the black people who have been vendors and entertainers at City Market, your vending and entertaining has been used to further the oppression of black people in this community, has been used to further the exploitation of black people in this community, has been used to further police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. And that is what history will record, and what history will repeat, and will say to people. Now, you still have the option going forward, because there will be more City Markets and more events to change where you stand at on history. But that is a fact that getting more minority vendors and entertainers access to the event of City Market is just helping to perpetuate the the issues of racism and anti-blackness and police terrorism and mass incarceration. A15 Capital is a black-owned investment company whose primary focus includes collaborations, events, and real estate. Founder Matt Simpson said he and his partners purchased a vendor booth and stage slots for performers to help diversify the weekly event by giving communities of color access to City Market's platform. Okay, so then, again here, I want to make sure that we emphasize that diversifying the people who black people have never had a problem or never had an issue with white people letting them play music at places, or with white people letting them be the entertainment, or with white people letting them be the help. As far back as slavery, when they knew black people had rhythm and black people had soul, and so that's why they would sit down and let the black people do the dancing. Minstrel shows, they had the black people was up there doing the entertaining. In the even when Jim Crow vigilantism and Jim Crow justice was something that was highly prevalent, there was still black entertainers and black musicians that white people would patron. Blues music was something that existed, and white people would go to patronize that. And so we have to get into a place where we understand that white people being okay with you playing music for them is not liberating black people. Especially in the kind of city that we live in and that we are existing in. The same thing also we also have to have the conversation as to have the conversation as to why this year have there been more black people? Have there been more diversification in the type of communities who have are doing music or having vending booths? And the reason for that diversification is because they are trying to combat the narrative that they are racist. They are trying to combat the narrative that they have engaged in police terrorism and mass incarceration and racial injustice. And they felt that the best way to combat that narrative was to ingratiate themselves with the communities of color and to let people who have been vying for the opportunity to be at City Market to finally have that opportunity. I've been told that one of the most prominent people of color that they've been parading around as sort of their championing as one of the people of color that they have at City Market, attempted multiple times before this year to get into City Market. 3 times is what I was told, and were denied each time. And then this year they were accepted in. They were, and anybody who understands politics, and again, I always use this saying that politics is everything in your life. Politics is everywhere in your life. Everything in your life is political. It's just about whose political ends does it serve. And with that being said, it is a political decision that there are 60% minority and women vendors down at City Market this year. And if there's not political power being ascertained by that 60% minority and women that can be used for other agendas and furthering the agenda of liberating minorities and liberating women, then that political decision is being used against the minorities and the women that are down there. It's not being used in coordination with them. We have to get away from this mindset that people have that somehow that they can that even though white people are doing racist activities, that somehow if they can find a way to exist within that racist activity, they can outsmart the racist white people, and really what they doing will be for black liberation. That is not how it works. What is going on is that white people are counting on black people accepting these roles, accepting this type of tokenism, and then they're counting on that once they accept that tokenism, they can use the image of them accepting that tokenism to combat the narrative of racism that exists. And anybody who is ingratiating themselves with the people who are doing those things are fighting against the movement and against the struggle that is being waged here. And that goes for all the vendors at City Market, for A15 Capital, for anybody selling food down there, selling shirts down there. That is just a matter of fact. And so let's continue through here. And then I'll have, after when we get through the story, I'll have Kay add in some of his thoughts. Quote, "My company reached out and said how we thought it was an opportunity for us to collaborate and help grow something that reflects more of our community," end quote, Simpson said. Quote, "We wanted to bring our skills to the table and bring diversity, equity, and inclusion," end quote. Now, and then again, I want to say here that there cannot be diversity, equity, and inclusion at City Market until the issues that affect the masses of black people are being spoken about. And again, I want to make sure that we are having a conversation on the same wavelength. City Market that we're speaking about is not taking place indoors. It's not taking place inside a private facility or inside of a private building. It is taking place on the street, as it has for the last decade, a public street that up until this year, and really until in some aspects last year as well, you could walk in and out with no problems, with no issues. There was never this idea that it was only accessible to certain people or you couldn't do certain things there. And once we began to protest and demonstrate there, they began to make it try to make it a privatized event. And so anybody with that understanding knows that there is not equity and inclusion and diversity at City Market, because part of equity, diversity, and inclusion means that ideologies that are descending from yours or dissenting from yours can be voiced. Beliefs that are dissenting from yours can be voiced. Equity, inclusion, and diversity at City Market would mean that people are able to protest at City Market about issues that affect the city of Rockford, Illinois. The majority and the masses of black people which live in this city are not like Matthew Simpson and Joshua Patterson and A15 Capital, or even any of the black vendors that are down there. The majority of the black people who live in this city will never have the opportunity to have a vending station set up at City Market unless the structure of white supremacy and white nationalism that exists in this city now is destroyed and something else is created in its stead. And so it is a smoke and mirrors effect to make it seem like allowing these black people to be a part of City Market make City Market more equitable, or make City Market more diverse, or make City Market more inclusive. And another thing, when we start talking about what equity is, equity means that for all the years going back in which there was not an appropriate amount of black people or people of color or women at City Market being represented, that in the years going forward, you have to make up for that. So if we can all sit here and say that we know that the further back you go, the less people of color and black people were allowed to be at City Market, it means for the years going forward, it has to be even more to make up for that. That is what equity is. And Kathy McDermott, the racist woman who helps to run City Market, and Todd Cagnoni, racist white man who works in here who helps to run City Market, racist Tom McNamara, the racist mayor who helps to run City Market, racist Peter Provenzano, the racist man who owns Supply Corps who helps with City Market. These racist white people have no intentions of giving black people equity, of giving black people inclusion, or giving black people diversity when it comes to the events that go on in downtown Rockford, Illinois, and the events that go on at City Market specifically. And until we are having a conversation in which we are saying those things, we are lying to the public and lying to the community. Let's continue to go. Rockford City Market, which runs May 21st to September 24th this year, would attract about 100,000 guests annually before the COVID pandemic. Rock River Development Partnership, which manages the market, said its partnership with A15 Capital has helped include more Rockford community members in the market. Quote, their booth offers a space for local entrepreneurs to try out the market and feature their local goods without needing a half or full season commitment or purchasing tents and equipment, said Nikki Lee, vending, accounts, and manager for City Market, in an email. Quote, the team at 815 Capital has been great to work with and has put a lot of pride and care into making sure the vendors in their booth and the local musicians in their KORT showcase are able to showcase their incredible talents and skills to the community. End quote. Let's continue. The collaboration allows entrepreneurs to rent A15's booth, which for many is more affordable than reserving a spot for the entire season up front or paying for half a season. A tent, table, and chairs are provided. And then let's get back into this. So that goes back into the idea that this is how capitalism works, and this is also how branding works. And sometimes when somebody is not, when people aren't from the outside looking in aren't business savvy or marketing savvy. They don't really see things a certain way. And so this is what's happening. City Market has founded, because I don't know what A15 Capital is paying for their booth, but City Market makes whatever they make off of people paying for all the booths and the vendor spots there. Then they make however much money based on how many people come and how much money, all of these things make. But the number one thing that City Market gets off of the City Market event is branding for City Market. Is more people knowing where City Market is more people wanting to be involved in City Market. That is the number one thing. And A15 Capital is doing the same thing. And so A15 Capital basically just having a City Market within City Market. Every week, somebody different is at the A15 Capital booth that they've paid for. I'm sure that they're paying A15 Capital to have the booth the same way A15 Capital paid City Market to have the booth. And the same way City Market may not be making an exponential amount of money from people paying to have the booths at City Market, A15 Capital may not be making an exponential amount of money for people paying to rent their booth out. But what they are getting is an exponential amount of branding and imagery happening, because every week there's a different person of color, a different business of color that's at their booth, which means that all the supporters that person has finds out about A15 Capital. They come out to try to support, to make sure that they have a good week, and that goes back towards feeding the whole system of City Market. That means City Market gets a new influx of people, because these are entrepreneurs of color. It means that they have basically a guaranteed bottom line of new influx of people of color that they can have their city photographers take pictures of, and people can post online, again, to shift this narrative and make it seem as if everything's all ebony and ivory singing out in Rockford, Illinois, and all the black people happy with the status quo and the white people happy with the black people being happy with the status quo. And all of that, again, is branding and imagery. And so I think that that's one of the things we have to be cognizant of as well as we read through these things and as we have these critical conversations, is that right now we are in a city that is in the process of gentrifying. We're in a city that's waiting for a casino to come, a city that's trying to transform its downtown, that just put a new hotel here, that's trying to get a building, in the process trying to get a train to be going from here to Chicago. And so this is neoliberalism, neo-capitalism at its highest form. And so a lot of people are trying to do branding moves looking towards the future and things that will happen in the future. And that's one of the reasons why City Market is fighting so hard against the demonstrations and the protests that we have been putting on, is because they want to be able to have a clean slate in a year or in 2 years or in 3 years. And they want these things to fade to the back of the consciousness of the community. And that's why they are using puppet black people like the A15 Capital and some of the other people who have been down at City Market to try to shift that narrative and to try to cover up those things. And so here, let's continue. We're almost at the end of this story here. Quote, "We have a booth at the event every Friday and partner with minority businesses to extend their platform on a more flexible basis," end quote, Simpson said. They even provide them with social media marketing services as well, which include a creative flyer and live social media Q&A the week of the event to promote their brand. Again, that word, brand, promote, those are the things. And then you have to also, this is the other thing too, as long as people are using racist brands to promote their brand, we should always tie their brands to racism. The same way that, Chick-fil-A. We'll use Chick-fil-A for an example. There's a lot of people who, they see somebody eating Chick-fil-A, they gonna read you your rights about all the fucked up shit that Chick-fil-A do and all the fucked up things that Chick-fil-A may donate or may support, and things of that nature. And so if somebody is trying to hitch their brand to Chick-fil-A, one of the side effects will be that so you will also get the cons that come with that. We've seen it happen with Trump when Kanye West or Steve Harvey or different people tried to hitch their wagon to the brand of Trump. You got just as much as they got the pros that came with the brand of Trump, people gave them the cons that came with it. And so I believe in the same manner, we have to give people the cons that come with City Market. They are trying to get the the pros that come with being down at City Market and with being in bed with these racist white people, we have to do the work and do the job of making sure that they feel the cons that come with being in bed with these racist white people, the cons that come with coordinating with these white supremacists in order to further their brand and their image. In the same way that we can never allow City Market to have a season here where we do not remind them that we remember what it is that they did to people last year and what they're continuing to do to people this year. We need to make sure that these brands who are helping to assist City Market in this deception and subterfuge of our community also have these smears connected to them until they make right by these actions, until they become on the right side of history. And so, again, it is branding. That is the number one thing, promotion and branding that people are getting out of City Market. And part of that promotion and branding needs to be the brand of racism and the brand of anti-blackness and the brand of white supremacy. Okay, that's the business side of the partnership. For the entertainment side, they operate under KORT, or Kings of the Round Table. This season, they have 4 performance windows, 2 on the main stage and 2 on the acoustic stage. Quote, "We are the facilitators of rich experiences and quality relationships, and access is synonymous with relationships," end quote, said A15 Capital partner Josh Patterson. Quote, "People tend to grant access to people who they know and who they like or trust, so we are strategic partners in this. There are entire industries or segments of businesses who don't have black representation. Then you're in that space feeling like you have a strong product or service, but just not the same network or access," end quote, he said. Quote, "We just want to close the gap," end quote. Vendors can contact A15 Capital on Facebook. Vendors can contact A15 Capital on Facebook at facebook.com/A15 Capital for booth rentals. And that's how they ended the story on branding. They ended the story on promotion. And that is why I say that that's what this is about. Nobody is sitting here saying that they are that the people that are down at City Market are getting rich off of being at City Market. But what they are doing is they are getting hella branding, hella promotion off of being at City Market, and they're getting that through racists and through white supremacists and through proximity to racists and white supremacists. And that's as much as being said in this last little paragraph here. And then I also want to say this too. I'm not sure how many people that's watching this or may watch this, listen to this, are fans of black music or fans of or historians of black music. But even in the most commercialized times of black music has always had a touch of the struggle in it, and had artists who touched on the experience of being black and the struggle that came with being black and the struggle for liberation. And so I find it tragically comedic that one of the things that they are facilitating at City Market is black music. I think that the spirit of black music is completely against this event that takes place at City Market. There were, again, to remind you, the same place that they are trying to facilitate black music and get black diversity at is a place where majority of the patrons are racist white people. They exposed that and showed that last year. They have the police officers. There are police officers who patrol the area of City Market for the street that's shut down. At least 3 of the police officers have been involved in the assault of minorities. 2 of the police officers were involved in the murder of 18-year-old Logan Bell, shot him 16 times. And then one of the police officers who's down there patrolling chokeslammed a middle school black girl at Lincoln a year and a half or a couple years ago. And that's just from 3 that I know off back. I'm sure if we lined up each one of them, not only will we see be able to find a litany list of transgressions that they've committed in the past. I'm sure that in the future we'll be able to see that the same people that they got at City Market gonna end up doing other things later on. Dominic McNeese will patrol City Market multiple times. I would be arrested by Dominic McNeese. And Dominic McNeese would go on the next week after the last City Market to attempt to murder Tyrus Jones while he was running away and unarmed. And then 3 to 4 months later would participate in the brutal beating of Denzel Duvant. And so I think that, again, the reason that I'm the reason we are reading these articles and going through and reading these stories is because I firmly believe that part of one of the number one instruments, the number one instrument that this city has in continuing to perpetuate police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice is that the people who live within the city do not know about these events of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice taking place. When they do find out about them, a lot of times they find out about them days later or weeks later. When they do hear these stories, it's days later and weeks later. And then if they do hear one story, they don't hear the other story. If they hear what happened on Monday, they don't hear about what happened on Wednesday. And then they don't hear about what happened on Saturday. And I think we have to begin to do the job of piling these straws up. We have to begin to do the job of aligning these dominoes up, of keeping these receipts and having a place and a platform where people can go through and see through time, each one of these events, each one of these stories, all of these different things, all of these different political actions and this political maneuvering, political jousting that is taking place in this city. So when the shit hits the fan again, and when those moments like May 30th happen again, and moments like Denzel Duvine and Tyrus Jones and the countless memorials that we have here on Say Their Name Square, when these moments happen again, that people understand that they're not happening in a vacuum, or they're not happening by themselves, that there are all types of breadcrumbs leading up to these things happening, and that a lot of times, and the breadcrumbs are not always just police officers assaulting somebody or police officers shooting somebody. Like we read the story yesterday about how the police union fought against having more police officers live in Rockford, and why they fought against that. That is just as relevant to the issue of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice as understanding the sexual assault charge that Eric Thurman has, and understanding how Eric Thurman is being paid to have this sexual assault charge. And that's just as important as understanding both of those things is just as important as being able to understand how the city of Rockford uses City Market to rebrand the city in an effort to cover up the police terrorism events that Eric Thurman commits, in an effort to cover up the corrupt nature of the police union not wanting more of its police officers to live within the city limits. And so, again, all of these things are important towards understanding these things. What's up, my man? Yep, raising awareness to police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice in the city. Man, I actually just gave my last pamphlet out not too long ago. You on Facebook or social media, anything? Yeah, we usually have pamphlets. If you come by tomorrow, I have a pamphlet for you. All right, I'm going to have one for you. Nah, yeah, I'm going to have a pamphlet for you. Yeah, yes. We got memorials all around the light post. 16 memorials, people who got killed by the police or died in custody out here. Yeah, yep. All right, I got you. Take it easy. Have a good night. Okay, and so again, we just want to continue to do the job of furthering the message, of spreading the message, of diving deeper into these conversations. And so again, we want to stay on the 815 Capital and on the specifically on people, vendors at City Market who are minorities, and the narrative of 60% minority and women vendors at City Market. So based on the things that were laid out in this story, what were some of your takeaways?
I'd say overall, staying on topic here, Rockford having a history of its minority community, specifically and deliberately being disenfranchised. I feel by and large, what we're seeing is an attempt to minimize the primary issues of the protesting last year, right, and trying to rebrand the look of it this year, because standing against racial profiling police violence, excessive force, and then being met with everything that you're standing against, it was just the irony of it last year can't be lost in the context that you had people protesting against issues that the mayor himself had acknowledged openly and publicly, never really ignoring the issue. He said publicly last year that he acknowledged that there was excessive force in the RPD. He acknowledged that there was that it needed changes. This is.
Well, I don't know if he.
When
I
I
don't
say
know if he acknowledged it in the RPD. That's not true. He never acknowledged that in this city the issue existed. He acknowledged that there was an issue in America, but never pointed out that in this city. Yeah.
Well, I will say this then. If he didn't say it publicly, there are a few meetings within City Hall. See, acknowledging something and doing something about something are two different things.
But let's make sure we stay on the city market. Yeah.
In regards to the city market and the vendors, all of a sudden that became a narrative this year.
Right.
How many female vendors there were, how many black vendors there were. Specifically, it just became black, and it was like, but that was never the issue last year. That wasn't even the conversation in regards to the protesting. It's amazing how Rockford, as a city, was just, I don't even want to say is in a place where the denial, it runs so deep that it's a historic denial. Because to touch on this subject, the consistency of how things work have to change. But that became the conversation this year. These black vendors. But ultimately, you have an event on this side of the river with black vendors in it, but yet just because you have what was the statistic again? 60% minorities in and I don't know how else to say it. I mean, city market is run by a white establishment. Right. So you have black vendors by and large financing a white establishment with almost a black twist on it, but it's still fundamentally catering to that white establishment. But yet the overarching issue with the city is the black community, not just 60% of vendors in a white established event, the community that they live in, that they go back to when they break their tables and their equipment down, the community that they actually live in.
We don't know that they all go back to that community.
True. Point taken. But the ones that do live there, the community that they actually live in is not financially being stabilized. I find that ironic.
Right.
It's one thing to say, well, we got 60% black vendors.
But then again, I just want to say that's not ironic if they don't live in that community. That's why I think it's important to point out that the masses of black people that live in Rockford will never have an opportunity to even be at City Market, to have a table down there, to vend down there, which is even displayed more in the fact that the A15 Capital that they're talking about in this specific story are putting other black people who can't afford to do it at City Market. So the black people who are trying to conduct businesses, who couldn't even afford a half a season or a whole season worth of space or whatever down there, they're facilitating that. So the people who are more likely to live in that community that you're talking about are probably the friends and the family of the people who are there for a week at A15 Capital's canopy or whatever. But the people who are in a position where they can have a food truck there or have real estate there, it's unlikely that some of the situations you're speaking about relate directly back to them. And so I think that's why we have to with certain things. This is a conversation. We have to make sure to not get lost in the weeds with certain things. And so for me, again, as I listening to you talk, was thinking about some more things that I think it's important to point out is that they are in the process of trying to turn what were protests for black lives into protests for black capitalism. And I think that is something that has been done constantly, where black people come out in a demonstration or in a protest or in a movement to try to get their freedoms, get their right to life, get their right to liberty. And black people who basically, because of their proximity to white people, or because of their proximity to privilege, or because of their proximity to class, or because of their proximity to finances, have gotten closer to that liberation, have gotten closer to that freedom, have gotten closer to that liberty, use that proximity and use that closeness to liberty and freedom to further their own self-interest, as opposed to using their position to try to help more of their black brothers and sisters get to a place of not having more money, but having more rights, having more freedom, having more liberty. And I think that is what the main part that we has to keep the focus on, is that those people who are down there at City Market, who are black, who have the opportunity to be down there this year, who did not have it years before, have it because black people came out there to protest for black lives and for black freedom. And because this city has no desire to grant black freedom, to grant black people the right to live their life, to grant black liberation, they have found something that they feel more comfortable with granting black people, and that is access to capital. That is access to proximity to white people. That is access to branding and imagery. And so instead of trying to make sure that Denzel Duvant's family is made whole, and Denzel Duvant is made whole, or Tyrus Jones' family is made whole, or Jose Gonzalez Jr.'s family, or instead of trying to make sure that the Logan Bell's family doesn't come out to City Market and see the police officers who murdered their loved one down there, because those things are not things that they have the interest in actually doing as an institution and as a city, they have decided, well, we'll be okay with y'all making a little bit of extra money, because it's not like y'all can make the money without us also making money. And then also, if we allow you to make money, it makes it look like, how can we be racist? We helping you make money, and what's more important in America than money?
And we're saying the exact same thing, because how I see it, and in many instances, just going down the City Market, it reminded me so much of countries in Africa, where you'd have America or Western Europe or Canada would entice a leader with finances as a show of, and it was theatrics, but as a show of, well, see, we're giving you money. Right. So for the sake of giving him millions, the country's losing out on trillions. Right. So when I look at City Market in the context of no sweeping changes to the police, how they do their job, the recklessness and different things of that nature, it's, well, but look at that vendor. That vendor's doing okay. Right. That vendor doesn't represent that whole community, though. Right. That's one person. Right. And it's like Rockford is deliberately pushing this scenario where it's like, but that vendor's doing okay, and that vendor's doing okay, and look, we've got more vendors. Okay, so the thousands of dollars represented by these vendors, how is that in any way, shape, or form a comparison of the millions of dollars that the community itself is doing without?
But and then again, I understand what you're saying, but I think the danger of bringing up the millions of dollars that the community is doing without is that nobody came down there asking for millions of dollars. True. And so that is the conversation that they want to happen. They want us to begin to have the conversation about money. That's why, which is not the point that we're down there. That's a separate conversation for a separate time. We went out to City Market to raise awareness to what took place on May 30th in Rockford, Illinois, and then what happened from there is that the same things that took place on May 30th took place at City Market, and it didn't matter how much money anybody had. Terry famously got a line talking about him being independently wealthy. Terry was independently wealthy. He still got his ass beat. He still got falsely arrested. And so what we were out there for, and again, Terry's white, so that's why we talk about police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. And what we went out there for was for those three things specifically. And we have to understand too that they are okay with giving millions of dollars away. And We've seen how much money Breonna Taylor's family got. We've seen even here where different people's families have gotten money. And so, yes, we are going to need economics and finances to assist us in getting out of some of the situations that we are in. But we will never be able to buy freedom and buy liberty. We will never be able to buy the a change of consciousness. That is something that has to be struggled for. And City Market was a perfect battlefield for that struggle. And it was within our legal rights and our constitutional rights to wage that battle and to wage that struggle down there. And what has happened is that they have tried to, the same way they tore away Logan Bell's right to live, they've torn away our right to protest about Logan Bell's life to live being torn away. The same way they tore away on May 30th hundreds of people's rights to protest about what happened to Demetrius Bennett and what happened to Kerry Blake and what happened to Geno Washington and what happened to Mark Barmore, when people went out to City Market to protest about those people's rights being taken away and those things happening to those people who came out to protest for these other people. The same thing happened to them. And so when we go back out to City Market this year and then even the year after this and the year after that, the issue that is the primary focus is the actual violence that is being sanctioned by the state, is the police terrorism, is the mass incarceration, the weaponizing of police, the falsifying of police reports. And these are all things that money can't get you out of. And as long as we allow, we have to control the conversation about economics and control the conversation about finances. We cannot allow that to be controlled by another entity, especially an entity that has an unlimited amount of those resources, who don't care nothing about giving you $10 million, $20 million. You know, this city had to pay $12 million at the beginning of last year to 3 different people that their police department falsely charged or charged erroneously for a murder. That their convictions were overturned. They sued the city, and each one of them were granted about $3 million. And so I think that it's important that we compartmentalize these conversations, and that is why I think that we have to have it is important for us to have this deeper conversation about what A15 Capital is doing at City Market, what other vendors are doing at City Market, what happened over the 815-day weekend at City Market, what has happened with the black police chief coming into office, what has happened with these black aldermen that they are championing, because these are all the same thing with these murals that they're putting black people on murals. All of these are all in the same vein, because the argument that somebody who is would be okay with going down the rabbit hole of finances would say is all of that is financial investment. That's what a white person would say. Those are all financial investments into the black community. This proves that we're not racist. This proves we're trying to give you opportunity and all of these things. And so pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And so I think that we have to make sure that we have the conversation of that we understand you will let a black person be a billionaire. Everybody I know in Chicago right now listening to Donda at Soldier Field Stadium. And then all of them that's finna leave Soldier Field Stadium watching Kanye West billionaire make all this music. Some of them gonna get their ass pulled over by the police because they black. Some of them might end up being arrested and charged with some shit they didn't do because they black, might get beat up by the police, might get shot by the police. All these different things going to happen for them being black. So even their proximity to a black man who has all these resources, who has all of these things, won't save them. It can't save them. And also a black man being able to get all of those things won't stop the systems from continuing to be perpetuated in the manner they are, as long as our end goal, or even part of our goals at this moment, is centered on finances, or centered on economics, or centered on money. We have to change the consciousness of the society. We have to change the thought pattern of the society. We have to change the way the society exists, the way our communities exist. And it's at that point that we begin to change those things that then we start having the conversation of economics and finances, and we start having the conversation of political office, and have the conversations of policies and those things changing. And so I do think it's important we sort of compartmentalize some of those different things. Was there any closing thoughts you have on the City Market vendors and A15 Capital, and just the co-optation of the protests for Black Lives in Rockford, how it's been co-opted for black capitalism in Rockford?
I mean, I think you summed it up beautifully. I mean, I hate how on social media and even in person how it became just even hearing people say, "Hey, black man, uh, why are we fighting each other? Hearing people say things like, "Wait a minute, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing at all. This was never about black people attacking other black people. This was not black people saying, uh, this wasn't about black people attacking black people in any sense of the word, whether they hold a political office or whether they're in the city market. It's not about an attack. It's about an attack on the social order and the white supremacist hierarchy that exists in Rockford. It exists here. They're choosing willful ignorance. There is a being someone coming from the outside in and observing Rockford. It is undeniable the just this grandfathered. It's a grandfathered in. It's a status quo that is here and it's older than any person in any office here. Is just being perpetuated, willfully perpetuated by those that gain office or position, and it is being preserved to the fullest. It is not being dismantled. It is not being. I mean, that's a full-on attack to dismantle something.
Right.
If I take one bolt out of a car, I haven't impacted the structural integrity of the car.
Not taking a bolt out the car.
Exactly. So it's like to look at what the attempts that are being done. It's a lot of it. I feel it's window dressing, because they really what I've learned being a part of this for this long is that those in power are deathly afraid of even touching the real issues. So they've added layers of other things that are inconsequential as a throw off to spark side conversations, as if those side conversations, which are leading people in other directions, are the root conversations, are the real conversations. So they have these put-offs where it becomes black vendors or minorities in the city market or women in the city market or city market in general, when it's actually a city issue.
Right.
And city market, it represents a cross-section of all of Rockford,
Right.
converging on the largest outdoor event in Rockford.
Right.
And just seeing this deliberate attempt to say we consciously have set a conscious effort to not deal with the root issues of the white supremacy that is pervasive throughout the entire political structure and social structure of Rockford.
Right.
They don't want to touch it.
No. Yeah, 100% agree. And like Kay pointed out there, and that's one of the other things I think is important to state, is that City Market is the biggest outdoor event that takes place here. You know, it's really one of the biggest indoor event, if you think annually, that takes place here. And so that was initially one of the reasons which we began to go there. And the same branding and image furthering that these institutions, that City Market is trying to do, and that different businesses and vendors are trying to do at City Market. We're doing that same thing with the issues of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. We want to get to that same big group of people that we can try to inform about these things. And so that is another one of the reasons we have to continue to go to City Market. And that is another one of the reasons in which they are trying to prevent us from continuing to be at City Market and having a presence at City Market and raise these issues up at City Market. And so I would encourage people to go and read that R-Star article. I would encourage anybody who is picking this up in the middle or towards the end to go back and watch this from the very beginning. And then we will continue to go through and read different articles throughout these weeks that come on RR Star. We'll continue to read the new ones when they pop up, and we'll try to continue to go back and retroactively read some of the older ones that have been put up there. We're going to do some more lives on this platform, and probably a couple different platforms as well tonight too. It's only 12:15, so we still got a lot of time, and I got a lot of juice left, I think. We want to make sure we try to get as much content and as much information out there as possible. It's Friday, so if you want watching this, come to City Market protest. Don't come to City Market as a vendor. Fuck City Market. Kathy McDermott's a fucking racist. City Market's ran by a bunch of racists. The mayors are racist. It's a lot of a sellout black people taking pictures with this racist ass mayor. Don't be one of those. And so we're gonna end this one just by with a what up. We're gonna end this one with a we outside, and we'll be back.